The SEC tournament bracket is set. The tournament begins tomorrow. This is the Stingray Show, and we are doing a deep dive into the SEC baseball tournament in Hoover. As right after this open, Chris Lee of Southeastern 16 will join me to do a recap of the last regular season in college baseball and to look ahead to all of the matchups tomorrow in Hoover right now on the Stingray Show.
Hi, this is Tim Brando with a reminder. Those of you on Tide 100.9, look out. You're about to feel the buzz of Stingray.
This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
I'm Heath Hopkins. I'm here in DeSoto County, Mississippi, right outside of Memphis, Tennessee.
You know, Mark, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you feel that responsibility to pay it forward and give some kid a chance coming up in the ranks, kind of like Tony did for you?
Why do you think I'm talking to Stingray tonight?
Thank you, man. I appreciate
that.
No,
I mean, look, no.
Hey, Stingray, here's the deal. When you get involved with Texas, it's like getting married to a stripper. and let me explain this. It looks good. It's kind of sexy on the surface. Yeah. But then you get the baggage, you get the drama, you get all that eventually comes with it. And that's what you get with Texas, and that's what the Big 12 learned.
And Heath, any thoughts on our show moving forward?
Hey, to everyone in Tuscaloosa listening here on Tide 100.9, with the Stingray Show, if you don't like it, you better learn to love it, because it's the best show going today, baby. Woo!
And with that, I want to welcome you inside another edition of the Stingray Show. Hope all is well on this Monday as we made it through another Monday. And tomorrow begins one of the best weeks in SEC play as we have the SEC tournament up in Hoover, Alabama at the Hoover That's a hard word to say. Hoover Metropolitan Complex, and your Alabama Crimson Tide enter as a 9 seed and will open up the tournament tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. And to break down all of the tournament action for the day tomorrow, here is our good friend from Southeastern 16 and from VandySports.com, Mr. Chris Lee. Chris, how are things with you in Middle Tennessee? And we have not caught up with you in a while.
Yeah, hey, things are safe here. And my friend, now you know that's why they just call it the Hoover Map.
Yes, that's right. So, Chris, going into the tournament and looking at the bracket, give us your thoughts on overall the bracket as it plays out.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I'm not really as tied up in who's going to win this thing because shorter tournaments can be a little, and especially with some teams having to play 5 games to win it, and some teams need to play 4, and some teams need to play 3, and so we've got some dynamics we're not used to before. What I'm frankly more interested in than a winner is some little subplots. Like I think you've got probably at least 6 SEC teams, 7 that are probably hosting. But like what with Alabama, Tennessee, yes, all those have, hosting cases, some stronger than others, depending on what factors you look at, but all pretty even in a lot of respects. Well, Alabama and Tennessee may play in the second round on Wednesday morning.
Right.
Could the committee, if Alabama beats Missouri, use that as a little bit of a tiebreaker? I think that's one interesting storyline. Kentucky and Oklahoma, first round game. I think Kentucky's in the NCAA tournament either way, but might want to beat Oklahoma just to be safe. Move further down, Carolina. I think Florida wins that game. But LSU found out the hard that Carolina is not necessarily a pushover and hasn't packed it yet when it took a game this weekend. Stephen, Florida is interesting because the Gators are 15-15 in the league, but I think the RPI, API are like 13-14, which puts Florida as a host. You add in the injuries to key guys missing time. if any team chase, it's Florida.
Right.
On the other hand, 6 of the win between South Carolina and Missouri. So a little padding in that 15-15 league record compared to some others. I don't think we've ever seen a 15-15 team host, but the Mets are strong enough to maybe make you wonder if Florida's an exception. But lose to South Carolina in game 1, that's not going to happen. So keep an eye on the Gators if they make a deep run. Bottom game of the first round, Mississippi State and A&M. I think A&M has got it to the weekend to make an NCAA case, if not win it all. Mississippi State is playing to be either a 2 or a 3 seed for whatever difference that makes, and has been hot. Wants to stack good baseball onto the good baseball that it's played late in the season. So I think those are many to watch just on day 1 alone.
Yeah.
But I'm interested in the subplots with hosting and teams and all those things more than I am who actually wins it.
So, Chris, we had Ben McDonald on the show one day last week, and Ben said over and over and over that he is not a fan of all 16 teams going to Hoover, because he said you played the regular season and this is postseason play. And if you are not good enough to play and have a decent regular season, you should not go to the postseason. Are you a fan of adding the 16th and the 15th team to Hoover, or should we stay like it is right now with all of them being invited?
You know, to be honest, I haven't completely made up my mind yet. I think on one hand, there's part of me that likes the new format, because taxing your pitching and you know, all those kind of things is not something teams that are headed to bigger things next week and should be doing.
Right.
On the other hand, you know, and also do like the built-in advantage for the regular season. The teams that really did work having to do a little bit less. On the other hand, Tim Corbin brought up an interesting point that I hadn't thought of, and I think he said Jay Johnson and another coach or two had agreed with him on change format, and that in terms of being a fan, you drive down there, you know, you're a Kentucky fan, you're driving down from Lexington, you get in just in time to see your Cats play on Tuesday. You lose to Oklahoma. Your team's out of the tournament just as soon as you got there, right? And so, you know, he said it creates a disincentive for the fans. I know that's not exactly what you asked me, but I thought it was an interesting point. I don't know. Initially, I kind of liked it because I'm all for let's incentivize teams to win this thing without costing them too much. But there are some other things, you know, the strategy cool to follow, even though it was, you know, I'm speaking out of both my mouth here, right? There's part of me that like the strategy of, you know, if you lose a game, then you need to save this and all the wheels that was been there. I think I've liked the changes for the most part, but there are some things like that I haven't liked as much, and maybe when we play the weekend, I'll be able to give you a better answer.
So, Chris, for those of you who do not know, this year at the SEC tournament, it is a one-and-done formula, kind of like the NCAA tournament in basketball.
Yeah, and that's what I was getting at earlier. Sorry if I didn't spell it out.
You're fine, man, but I was just clarifying that for our audience.
Sure, I knew you were.
Yeah. So, Chris, hold that thought, because we're up against our first break, and when we come back, we are going to be discussing the coaching carousel a little bit, and especially the one at Mississippi State. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will return with Chris Lee right after this. Are you looking for a traditional banking experience with a banker who calls you by name? Then we invite you to get to know our friends at Bryant Bank. Bryant Bank customers enjoy online banking accessible around the clock to give you the freedom and flexibility to bank your way, all backed by the people you know and trust. Get to know your Bryant banker at one of the 4 Tuscaloosa locations today. Bryant Bank, an equal housing lender, and as always, a member of the FDIC. Welcome back inside the Stingray Show. My guest this evening is Chris Lee of Southeastern 16, a good friend of the Stingray Show and a good personal friend as well. And Chris, one of the biggest topics this season revolves around Chris Lemonis and Mississippi State. First off, give us your thoughts on Chris Lemonis being let go at Mississippi State. And if you were the athletic director at Mississippi State, who are you calling first?
Yeah, I think it was a strange situation, right? And this is the team that Chris Lemonis put together that's having a run. I know that they missed expectations, and what a weird career. Because on one hand, you had a coach who wins a national title, right? And then has two bitterly disappointing seasons, comes back last year, has a really nice year. I thought State kind of got screwed on the NCAA draw last year. I thought State should have been a host. You played over in Starkville with that way. Maybe it's different. Maybe State advances a weekend or two. And Chris Lemonis is not in this spot. That's how it went instead. And, what I had heard, and you probably heard too, was that State felt ultimately he wasn't the right guy for the job and didn't want to have a run to where, okay, more pressure on you to keep him, which I do get. If you don't think a guy's right for the job, it's time to move on.
Right.
So, but also he did put together this roster that's making the NCAA tournament. So that's to his credit too. State people have their own idea of what they should get and who I think is a realistic target than I do. And I'm not saying that to poop on State here. I'm just saying, the way that job is viewed in Starkville and the way they view who they should hire, it might be a little different than mine. I know they're this swinging high immediately. Steve Robertson is a guy that's usually plugged into that search. I think Brian O'Connor has been a guy that's been named, and there was another one too, maybe Wes Johnson at Georgia. So they're going successful head coach. For O'Connor, goodness, he's been at Virginia a long time, and that's a very different situation in Starkville. But baseball is, and then I think this is good and bad. Okay, baseball is probably the biggest sport. Well, football is always the biggest sport, but other than that, it's baseball.
Yeah,
and there are good things that go with that, and there's pressure that goes with that. And so I think every candidate, how he's going to look at it, probably going to differ, and probably a lot of whether somebody would take the job is how happy are you with your own situation, your own NIL, your own AD, those things. And so I can't speak to how people feel about that individually. Yeah. I think both those guys are really good coaching candidates. If they're not worried about keeping it in the family, the guy that I thought would be a great fit for that job in a lot of ways is Rob Vaughn at Alabama.
Yeah.
Because they'll have more resources at State than it will at Alabama. And I think Rob is a terrific coach who gets everything out of what he gets. I think Butch Thompson goes in that category too. Butch has obviously had more postseason success, and he's got State ties. Now, I do feel like, okay, why mess up a good thing at Auburn? Because he's winning big there too. And then Nick Mingione at Kentucky is another one that's been batted around. Who was an assistant, great recruiter. Has done great things at Kentucky. I don't know where it's going to settle. Those are all great names.
Yeah.
Hitting coach at Georgia has been mentioned. Name escapes me there. So I don't know where it's going recently. My eyes have been kind of to the on the field stuff, but I'm going to be very interested to see where this settles. And to me, the longer it goes on, the longer that tells me that they're targeting someone still playing baseball. And I know we're just ending the tournaments this week, so it's premature yet, but it will be interesting to see how long it plays out because that might tip their hand a bit.
So, Chris, let's talk about the most surprising and at the same time disappointing baseball team in the SEC and possibly even the country. That, of course, is the number one preseason Texas A&M Fighting Aggies. They drop out of the top 25, the fastest of any baseball team in history. Then they get on a little bit of a hot streak. Then they lose the series, giving Missouri their first SEC conference wins and now they lose to Georgia. What in the world is going on down at College Station with Texas A&M fighting Aggie baseball?
They might be asking themselves that too, because I mean, just when you think, and I'm going to backtrack and pull up their schedule,
Okay.
and just how this all happened, because I'm always kind of with baseball. It's a weird sport, man.
Yeah.
I always say this: the same batted ball that leaves the ballpark with the help of a slight gust of wind with 3 guys on, that puts 4 on the scoreboard. The same fly ball with the gust of wind the other way might get caught on the back edge of the warning track and score no runs and win the inning. So there's always weird stuff with baseball because it's very high variance. And I'm usually a guy that I don't react too quickly if the history is that you've established that you're a good team, good player, fill in the blank with whatever. When they got no hit in Knoxville,
Yeah.
on the opener of weekend 4 in the SEC, got beat 10-0. I'm like, okay, they're done. Except they weren't. They win 9-3 and 17-6. They go sweep South Carolina, and then they take a series from Arkansas. I mean, and just at that point, I'm like, okay, this is the team that we thought we were getting. It just took a while to get here. And then they lose at Texas, but they're all 1-run games. That can happen to anybody. And then they beat LSU in the series. The last thing that I thought was about to happen was that A&M was about to lose 5 of the next 6, and the one win would be against Georgia. I don't even have words for the situation. I don't know how to explain it. They've got so many of the ingredients. They've got 3 really good lefties in their rotation. They got future major leaguers. I mean, it is. I've seen some strange things in SEC baseball, but I don't know that anything tops this season for them.
So, Chris, let's go on ahead and transition to the other team that you cover with Tim Corbin and the Vanderbilt baseball team, because you cover them for Vandy Sports. Give us a preview of Vanderbilt going into this SEC tournament and moving forward.
By the way, we recently made a switch to Vandy 24/7, just for an audience note in case people follow our stuff. I mean, they've had a remarkable season. This is not one of Tim Corbin's most talented teams. It has struggled. They have pieced it together. I think their best hitter is probably Riley. Well, no, not probably. It's Riley Nelson, a JUCO first baseman who bounced around, who nobody wanted for a while, who wanted to go to Ohio State. It was his dream school. Not exactly a baseball powerhouse. Ohio State told him, hey, you can come, but you may not even have a scholarship. And the kid's heart got broken so many times. We're used to Vanderbilt teams with J.J. Bledays and Austin Martins and Pedro Alvarez's. To see them being led by a guy that other people didn't want is amazing. Pitching staff, same thing. They don't have the rocker, lighter guys, but they've got a really deep bullpen of a lot of guys who are quality arms, really good arms. And their best pitcher is a kid who was at Dayton a year ago. Doesn't top 88 miles an hour, gets the ball and throws it about as quickly as he's allowed, and just got tremendous stuff, and almost nobody can hit him. Again, nobody was coming looking for Connor Fennell in the portal, I don't think. A guy, but they're making it work, piecing it together. And I'm not saying they don't have really good talent, because there's some really good arms on that pitching staff and some really good up-and-coming young hitters. But it's been a weird season, and I think for Tim Corbin, and look, they didn't play South Carolina or Missouri, so they didn't get some of the built-in wins other teams did. To go 19-11 with their situation, I thought most years Tim Corbin is getting Coach of the Year consideration, and he might. I think it's going to go to Jim Schlossnagle or maybe Butch Thompson, but he's done an amazing job with his team this year.
And Chris, Vanderbilt does not even play until Thursday because they wrapped up the 4 seed in the SEC tournament. That's incredible.
Yeah, not a lot to play for Vanderbilt down there in only 3 games maximum, which I think Tim Corbin in a lot of ways probably secretly loves for how it sets up for his team. But I mean, they're going to be a top 8 seed,
Right.
I don't know that they'll drop lower than 5 or 6, even if they lose a game this weekend, and it may not drop out of the top 4 regardless.
So, Chris, we are up against yet another break, and when we come back, we are going to dive into the defending SEC tournament champions and talk about the defending national champions as well, the Tennessee Vols, and what's going on up at Rocky Top. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. Chris Lee will continue with me right after this. Chris, you good to go another segment?
I can give you one more. Probably need it, as short as you can make it, but I'll deal with whatever.
Thank you.
Spring is blooming at Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op, your one-stop shop for everything you need to grow healthy plants all season long. Come explore our fully stocked garden center featuring trusted names like High Yield and Fertiloom. And don't miss our Bonnie plant sale happening now through May. It's the perfect time to stock up on quality vegetables, herbs, and flowers. Whether you're planting a backyard garden or prepping your fields, Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op has the tools, knowledge, and products to help you grow. Come see us, 4301 McFarland Boulevard, or call us, 205-339-8181.
Welcome back inside the Stingray Show. My guest this evening is Chris Lee of Southeastern 16. And Chris, let's backtrack to last year's SEC tournament for a second. The winner of the SEC tournament, Tony V and the Tennessee Vols. Then they go on and make a run to Omaha and ultimately win the national championship. This year, they come into the SEC tournament as the 8th seed, and this season has been a little rocky, and especially them losing some home series. Give us your thoughts on the 2025 season for the Tennessee Volunteers so far.
Yeah, I mean, another weird storyline. They popped out of the gates looking like they were unbeatable, and nobody would really take this seriously, but talk of going unbeaten in the SEC and stuff like that, which everybody knew wasn't going to happen.
Right.
And I always say, let's wait to see teams play somebody before we make judgments. And when Tennessee started playing the heavyweights of the league, the outcomes started going a lot differently. The cracks got exposed. I think their pitching on the whole after Liam Doyle isn't quite what they thought it would be. They've had trouble holding runners on. We've seen how many stolen bases teams have gotten against them. Defensively, they've been just a train wreck at times. They can't find any kind of rotation or consistency in their infield. The hitting, guys like Gavin Keelan have not hit in the league the way that they hit out of the league. Now, there's some exceptions. Andrew Fisher has. But, yeah, I just think when the tougher teams came on the schedule, and they did get through some of them early, like the Florida sweep looks great. The Alabama win at Alabama looks better. But once they started getting exposed after that A&M series, goodness, they have now lost, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They lost 6 of their last 7 series to end the year. Now, they didn't get swept by anybody.
Right.
And they're capable with Liam Doyle if he's healthy, and he's got a blister on his finger that's been problematic. They're still talented enough to do whatever they want to do. That they could repeat as national champion, but the flaws could also get them knocked out of the first round. Yeah. And I'm really interested to see, do they play at home? And do they make a run in Hoover that gets them a regional? Do they lose a game and maybe that gives the committee an out for them not to host? I'm interested to see that. And frankly, I feel like Tennessee's played better on the road in some ways. And I wonder if maybe being on the road works out better for them. It certainly did in 2023. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff there with Tennessee that's a mystery to me, and I don't know how this is going to go.
So, Chris, I've been following college baseball for about 4 or 5 years now, and I can tell you, just from my personal opinion, there is no team in America that is more snake bit of trying to get to Omaha after dominating the season and possibly even the SEC tournament a couple of years. Ooh.
Yeah.
Pig Suey, Arkansas. For whatever reason, they cannot get over losing in the championship game or championship series versus Oregon State, where they dropped that fly ball. Chris, do you feel like that this year's Arkansas team could potentially get them back to Omaha?
Oh, absolutely. And I think they could win it. I mean, eventually Van Horn is going to get one of these, right? I mean, they are not.
He has to.
Yeah, snake bitten is a great word to describe it. Their roster, their lineup is really deep. They got some pieces off the bench. The arms haven't been quite as dominant as they thought,
Right.
But they're still really talented. Most teams would kill to have Zach Root, Landon Beidelshees, Gabe Gackel as their weekend rotation. Again, even though they've been a little disappointing.
Right.
They got a bunch of a bunch of arms in the bullpen who've been terrific. They got Jimenez, Carter, Will McIntyre, who's a change of pace, was great and was probably the MVP of Game 3 against Tennessee. I think they've got enough pieces. That's what you watch, and it wouldn't shock me if this is the year that Dave Van Horn took home his first big trophy.
Man, that would be awesome. I'm really pulling for that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are. You have to feel a little sorry for them.
Yeah.
The fan base deserves that program.
Yes.
It's kind of like the Oscar or whatever that you give, and maybe it wasn't so and so's best film, but they've been there for a bunch of them, and they get one given to them in the end. I kind of feel like that parallel applies. I feel like Arkansas has been good enough that there should have been a natty in there at some point, and maybe this is the year.
So, Chris, looking at the entire SEC tournament this week, give us a couple of your sleeper teams that could make a run or ultimately win it all on Sunday.
Oh, I think Mississippi State's got a lot to play for.
Okay.
But they also get A&M in game one,
Yeah.
an A&M team that has to win. If they get by that, they've been pretty hot. They get Auburn in game 2. Auburn, man, what did Butch Thompson do to get this draw? Listen, you get either A&M or Mississippi State, two teams that really kind of need some wins in this tournament for different reasons. Then if you win that, you get LSU. And then if you win that, you might get Arkansas.
Right.
If Auburn wins this thing, it will have earned it and then some. I kind of like Vandy out of the top half of the bracket with the draw. I don't know that they're a sleeper.
Right.
Texas has got nothing to prove. It's going to be the number one national seed, I think, regardless of what happens in this tournament. So I think those are – I don't know if there's a sleeper in this league. I'll tell you what Kentucky's due to catch a break. They're really, really tough. They got swept by Vanderbilt last weekend, but they were 3 swings away from sweeping Vandy. So that's a team that I don't think I really want to play. They get a very similar Oklahoma team in game one that they swept last weekend. I think that's a team that could do some damage too. They got to get better out of their bullpen, but it helps having a park that's bigger than what you play in the league too.
So, Chris, let's finish it up with 2 more things. First off, everybody here wants to know your thoughts about Roll Tide opening the tournament tomorrow against Missouri and how far you think Rob Vaughn can take Alabama.
Yeah, look, the metrics have Alabama as a hosting team, and I do too. I do worry about the presence of Tennessee and Ole Miss because if you group them together and look at different things, they all went 16-14 in the league. Alabama did lose the series to Tennessee, and it did not play Ole Miss. It's got the best metrics of the teams, but I'll tell you what can give the committee an out is losing to Missouri in game 1, so you don't want to do that. Again, you win that one, you beat Tennessee in game 2. I don't know how Alabama's not hosting. I think it'll be up to their bullpen, which has been a little better lately. Where do they use Adams? Where do they use Quick? Do they pitch them out of turn? I don't know. A lot of teams are going to have that decision, but I think Alabama, to me, is one of the more interesting teams in this tournament because of the range of possibilities regarding hosting or maybe going to someone else's ballpark next week.
All right. And Chris, who do you ultimately have taking home the SEC tournament championship? Because the regular season championship was won by the Longhorns of Texas. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go with Arkansas winning in Hoover this week. Who do you have?
I like LSU. I think having to win 3 games sets up better for their pitching than anybody. Anderson and Ianson have both gone complete games this year. The park does not tax pitchers as much because of the bigger foul territory, and it's harder to hit a home run down there. And I think LSU's got enough talent to piece together a championship game 3. To me, I think that's the pick.
Gotcha. So, Chris, look, man, enjoy covering the games in Hoover this week. I will be there on Wednesday. Hopefully, we can catch up in person there, and we will catch up with you later on down the line, and hopefully, we can catch up next week when we can talk about Vanderbilt hosting a regional there in Nashville.
You bet, my friend. Look forward to seeing you in Hoover, and thank you as always for having me here.
Of course, man, and have a safe trip coming down Interstate 65 because it is dangerous.
Yeah. Let's hope we stay away from the weather this week too.
Yeah. Thank you, buddy.
You bet.
All right, so we have one segment left here on the Stingray Show. Really do want to thank Chris Lee for joining me right there, and when I come back, I'm going to be joined by Ryan Sylvia of VolReport.com, which is of the Tennessee Rivals site, to get his thoughts on the defending national champions and the defending SEC tournament champions of Tennessee and what has been going wrong up on Rocky Top this year in baseball, because it has been rocky to say the least. Ryan Sylvia finishes up the Stingray Show with me right after this commercial break. Do you currently have a bass fishing lake, but you're not happy with the size of bass that are coming out of the lake? Springtime is the perfect time to stock your lake with fish that will help you grow larger bass. Currently, right now, from Honey Hole Fisheries, they can offer threadfin shad, copper-nosed bluegill, minnows, golden shiners, and tilapia to help grow larger bass in your lake. You can contact Honey Hole Fisheries at 205-799-0192. Once again, that is 799-0192. Honey Hole Fisheries also offers Texas Hunter fish feeders. Contact him today to grow bigger bass in your dream lake. Welcome back inside the final segment of the Stingray Show. Hope all is well with everybody on this Monday evening as we are on the eve of the SEC baseball tournament up in Hoover, and I am about to be joined by our good friend from VolReport.com, which is the Tennessee Rivals site of Ryan Sylvia. And the Tennessee Volunteers come into this tournament with a record in the SEC conference of 16-14. That is a big difference from where they were last year. And remember, they are the defending SEC tournament and the defending national champions. Ryan, how are things with you up on Rocky Top? And talk about this season as a whole for the baseball team, because things have been a little rocky as of late.
I'm doing good, Stephen. I'm not sure if Tennessee baseball fans would say the same right now, though there's definitely some frustration here in Knoxville. I think there's a good portion who are taking it in stride and kind of looking at the bigger picture and understanding that it is the start of a new season. Once you get to this point, you kind of catch your breath for a second, play that SEC tournament that, has implications this year for Tennessee in terms of if they're going to be able to host a regional or not. And then it's really a new season once you get to the NCAA tournament. And Tennessee's been in a similar position in 2023, where the team that traveled for a regional went to Clemson, was able to win that Clemson regional, and then went on the road again to Southern Miss, beat Southern Miss, and went to the College World Series. The difference between that year and this year is that it feels like that year they were maybe starting to heat up at the end and got off to a sluggish start, where this year, when they jumped all the way back up to number one, and then now they've lost 5 straight SEC series, I think it is. So there is the difference there of maybe peaking at the right time, but it's definitely a mix right now between people saying, hey, this team's fine, there's a lot of talent, they can go really far, and people who are kind of checking out already because of the way this regular season ended.
So, Ryan, you cover Tennessee baseball. What do you attribute the kind of slide to the end of the season on for Tennessee?
I mean, there's a long list of reasons. I don't think it's one overarching reason. So, and it kind of goes game by game sometimes. There's some issues that seem to appear every game, like in the field. It's a team that's prone to a lot of errors. It's a team that's giving free passes on the bases with pitchers and not getting the delivery to home fast enough, and not giving their catchers good chances to throw runners out. So they're kind of getting run on, and they're giving free passes to get on base. But some games you get dominant pitching, and that's what you expect with Liam Doyle every week. He had an off week last week where Arkansas got him pretty good, but for the most part, he's been really consistent. The issue is on those days, sometimes bats don't show up. And then on some days, you get a really good day from Marcus Phillips. Like, he pitched pretty well in that opener against Arkansas that they won. And the bats show up and you win. Or some days the bats don't show up. So it's just, they can't seem to get everything clicking at once, I guess, is a way to sum it up. Like, some things are bad pretty much every game. Some things are better more often than not. But it's been pretty rare that it's like, they're playing well on the field, the bats are hot, they're pitching well. Like, one of those games where they just look kind of unstoppable like they did for a lot of last season, that seems few and far between right now.
So, Ryan, let's go to Wednesday morning. Tomorrow morning, Alabama and Missouri face off. Tennessee gets the winner. I'm just going to go on ahead and say Alabama gets that win, putting it Alabama and Tennessee again. And Alabama, as of late, has been a kryptonite for the Tennessee Volunteers. How do you see Tennessee and Alabama matching up on Wednesday morning if that does happen?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting matchup. You're right. I mean, Tennessee couldn't beat them in Tuscaloosa last year, and that was, I believe, their only SEC series loss of the entire season. If not, they didn't lose one again until pretty late in the year. And then this season, Tennessee went down. They were able to take that series against Alabama, and it was in Tuscaloosa again, just with the way the scheduling worked out. So Tennessee has them 2 out of 3 so far this year. In terms of in Hoover, Alabama fans are going to be there. It's a short trip. I'm sure a good amount of Tennessee fans will be there too. They've kind of adopted Hoover since Tennessee baseball has really jumped on the scene and traveled well for it. But it is in Alabama's backyard, and it's going to be a situation where you kind of have to see the pitching matchup first, maybe. Like, what does Tennessee do? I would be pretty surprised if they threw like a serious arm. Like, I think that they're probably relatively okay with, saving someone to see if they do get further and they need them. And, worst case scenario, I guess you lose game 1 and they get an extra week off. So I'm interested to see who they announce, because it's tough to say that, Tennessee has the upper hand or Alabama has the upper hand when at the moment we're talking right now, I don't think we know who either team is pitching. So you kind of have to wait for that, see what Tennessee wants to do with it, see what those rotations look like before you put a finger. But Tennessee is good enough to win. And that's kind of the whole thing is they're a really talented team. They have MLB players all over that roster. They have the talent to beat anyone in the country on any given day on any given field. So I'm not going to count them out of making a Hoover run or making an NCAA tournament run.
Speaking of the NCAA, how far do you think this Tennessee team can go?
They could go to Omaha and they could make a run in Omaha. Like, I think that's still the ceiling. And it's because exactly what I just mentioned, like the talent's there and it's young talent. They have one senior in Hunter Ensley who's playing really good baseball right now. But even when you look at the juniors or the other contributors in the lineup, like, there's multiple freshmen that are playing every single day. And that's fine. And that's a good sign for a program that you have freshmen that are contributing this early. but it's a young group of guys. So if they can really get things to start to click, like, God, I mean, they're super talented. Like they could go really, really far. If they keep playing how they've been playing, they're going to lose in a regional, and it's going to be on the road because they probably won't win in Hoover either. So that's where the kind of holdup is do things click? It's baseball. It's a funny sport. Sometimes teams just turn a switch and can kind of get hot this time of the year. Sometimes teams just look like they have for the last recent stretch. So I'm interested to see. You could use Hoover as a good turning point and start to build some momentum, even if you don't make a massive run, but win 1 or 2 games, and that could be a difference maker. Or you could kind of continue to go sluggish in, and then it's going to be tough to get out of a regional when you're not playing at home.
So, Ryan, Tennessee was also a big topic in the spring for another sport, and that, of course, was football because Nico transferred out of the program. Now that the dust has settled and Nico is at UCLA, give us your thoughts on the entire fiasco surrounding Tennessee and Nico.
I think fiasco is a good way to put it. Maybe saga, something like that. It was dramatic and it was messy, and it was a messy breakup between the two sides. And I think you can point fingers all you want, but it's a situation that neither team are coming out on the right side of. Nico's at a worse school football wise, and he's not going to win as many games. He's not going to have the weapons around him. Maybe not even play an easier schedule as necessary. Like I think UCLA probably still has an easier schedule than Tennessee, but they still got to go play those Ohio States and other teams in the Big Ten now. So it's not a cakewalk there either. That's a team that could get beat up, and he's not going to have the pieces around him that he would at Tennessee. And then if you look at UT side of things, they're taking a downgrade at quarterback. Joey Aguilar is someone that's dynamic and is really fun to watch when he's on. But if you watch the App State film, there's times where the decision-making gets questionable. He puts the ball in harm's way, the turnovers start to pop up. And if you start to do that, then that could lead to a good amount of losses for Tennessee as well. And we'll see if it is Aguilar, who's definitely the favorite right now to win that job, or if they go to one of the two freshmen in Jake Merklinger or George McIntyre. But it just right now, you look at both sides of the situation, feels like Nico's losing financially. It seems like he's going to be making less over there and also on the field. And then Tennessee, they're going to be a worse team for it right now. But you also definitely understand having to take that temporary loss for the kind of long standing of the program and keeping things healthy in the locker room.
So, Ryan, when you first heard the news about Nico and him sitting out of practice and all that stuff, what were your initial thoughts?
I mean, it was something that like you definitely maybe heard the whispers here and there. Like it wasn't out of nowhere, but it was still surprising to see it
Right.
kind of actually develop and become a real thing. Like you kind of always assumed, yeah, it'll get figured out. That surely isn't that big of a deal. And then when the reports come out that Friday morning that he doesn't show up to practice, it's like, I don't know if there's any coming back from this. Like that kind of feels like the definitive line between, hey, there's negotiations, there's frustrations on both sides, but you can get to the bottom of it and figure this thing out, even if it does mean he doesn't play in the spring game. When you don't show up to that Friday practice unannounced, the coaches don't know where you are. That's what Heupel said. That was the moment that he knew they were moving on. That's just not something you can kind of come back from, especially at the quarterback position, and kind of regroup the team and be the leader that you're expected to be. So it was surprising. It wasn't out of nowhere, but it was definitely still pretty surprising that it all developed that way.
So, Ryan, my final thing for you, going back to Hoover and the SEC tournament, who ultimately do you have taking home the trophy on Sunday?
Man, it's tough to pick against Texas. They're playing really good baseball right now. I love that closer reliever they have. I mean, he's got a case to win SEC Pitcher of the Year. He's been fantastic. So it's tough to pick against them. And obviously, as the 1 seed, you have to like the draw for them. I mean, you're probably getting Tennessee or Alabama, and then you're getting probably Vanderbilt or one of those two teams. And those both feel like winnable games. So for me, I like Texas right now. That's kind of my pick to go and run the table. But I mean, it's also, I guess, a chalky pick. Arkansas is a good baseball team too. I wouldn't be surprised if we did get the kind of chalk 1 versus 2 seed matchups, and those were the teams squaring off. But I'll take Texas. I'll take the easy pick and go with the Longhorns.
So, Ryan, look, man, enjoy covering the Volunteers this weekend. As you talked with me off the air, you are not making the trip down to Hoover from Knoxville this year, and we would love to catch up with you one day next week to talk about where Tennessee goes in the regional and how you think those matchups favor Tennessee.
All right. Sounds good, man. Let me know.
All right. Have a good week, and we will catch up with you next week.
Thanks for having me on.
All right. So, guys, that is going to wrap up the preview show for Hoover. We really hope that you have thoroughly enjoyed it with Chris Lee first and then Ryan Silva. A Vol report right there talking about the defending SEC tournament champions and the defending national champions from last year. We are staying with baseball tomorrow evening when we come back at 6 p.m. Adrian Morales, the former South Carolina baseball player, will be joining me right here on the Stingray Show to go over his career. And then on Wednesday, we will have Tanner Allen, the former Mississippi State national champion, join us. And then on Thursday, we will have former Mississippi State head coach Andy Cannizzaro will join us. So we have a stacked show for you guys this week, all about college baseball, and we will see you tomorrow evening once again at 6 p.m. on normal time with none other than Adrian Morales, the two-time national champion from South Carolina. We will see you then.